Under the bright lights of the stadium, a rising basketball superstar found herself at the center of an unexpected storm. As the home NFL team hosted its weekend matchup, Caitlin Clark stood on the sidelines, smiling and waving to the crowd. The Indiana Fever had been invited to celebrate their surge in popularity and on-court success, and the organization brought Clark and several teammates onto the field before kickoff. It was supposed to be a feel-good moment, a bridge between two sports and a public nod of respect from football to a local basketball phenom. Each Fever player received a custom jersey with their WNBA number on the back, a ceremonial welcome into the football family. Clark's was a crisp blue number 22, matching the digits she wears for the Fever. Her teammates slipped theirs on for photos, blending instantly into the NFL scene. But Caitlin Clark did something different. She lifted the jersey with both hands and smiled for the cameras. And then, quietly and politely, she did not put it on. In that small, wordless gesture, a storm gathered. At first, few in the stadium seemed to notice. The public address announcer hailed the guests, cameras swept over the group, and Clark's grin flashed briefly on the big screen as she held the jersey up like a keepsake. It all happened in seconds. But once the clips hit social media, the moment ignited. Short videos and still frames circled the internet, racking up views and sparking instant debate. One angle captured Clark cradling the jersey without slipping it over her shoulders.
Say, man, thank you guys again, but we got to jump into this story. So, like I stated, Caitlin Clark went to the Indianapolis Colts game, broke the damn internet. I mean, everybody's talking about it, a bunch of footage.
Another showed her laughing with teammates who were already in full blue. The comments came quickly. Some people thought it was hilarious. Some said it was bold. Many simply wanted to know why.
To anyone who has followed her closely, the reason wasn't complicated. Caitlin Clark is a die-hard Kansas City Chiefs fan. She has said it since the beginning, and she has lived it just as long.
There's this picture that's been circulating a couple years ago when I was on Peyton Eli's Monday Night Show, where I'm in a full Chiefs outfit. I had family in Kansas City, and I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, which is only 3 hours from Kansas City, so...
Growing up in the Midwest, surrounded by a family of Chiefs devotees, Clark fell in love with football on winter Sundays long before she became the face of a basketball renaissance. Her fandom is stitched into her story the same way deep threes and no-look passes are stitched into her game. She has been spotted at Arrowhead. She has spoken about watching the Chiefs with her family, and she wears that loyalty comfortably like a favorite hoodie. So when she stepped into a rival stadium, accepted a rival's jersey, and decided not to wear it, she wasn't inventing a persona. She was simply being herself. Even so, the decision radiated outwards with an energy that felt bigger than football. On one side, the applause rolled in. Chiefs faithful saluted her loyalty. Casual fans grinned and admitted they respected the stance. There was something refreshingly human about a global sports star who still clung to the tribal, irrational, heartfelt devotion that underpins fandom. In a world of mercenary uniforms and corporate messaging, a small act of allegiance felt honest. Others, particularly those proud to claim her as their city's basketball hero, weren't so thrilled. They saw the football team's invitation as a show of goodwill, a local embrace, a moment of unity. To decline the jersey, even politely, felt to them like turning down a handshake in front of a packed house. In their eyes, the gesture wasn't about the NFL at all. It was about the city, and the city wanted her to say yes. Clark herself didn't offer commentary. She didn't need to. Her stance said everything, and her closest friends understood. Teammates who know her day-to-day laughed that it was classic Caitlin, nothing surprising, nothing calculated.
Female bird. She had Van Slugenhagen on her. She was like, I'm offended that y'all have white defensive players guarding me, and she put her in the torture chamber. You should have known from her little face that she didn't want this matchup from the beginning. Caitlin reminds me.
She wasn't rejecting the city that has filled her arena and lifted her profile. She was holding fast to a childhood bond. The kind of bond that doesn't snap just because the lights are brighter or the cameras are closer. Without animosity or attitude, she stood in a rival stadium and chose not to wear rival colors. It was stubborn in the way loyalty is stubborn. It was simple in the way truth is simple.
Then came the twist that turned a tidy argument about fan loyalty into a broader conversation about respect. After the game, the football team's social media posted a video of the Fever's on-field appearance. The clip highlighted the gift of the jerseys and the cheers rising up from the stands. But in the short caption, the players weren't named. They were labeled by numbers alone. One of the most famous names in sports at the moment was reduced to numerals. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe it was a stylistic choice. Whatever the intent, the effect was immediate.
Teammates were at the Colts game, and Caitlin, a diehard Chiefs fan, is the only one not wearing the custom jersey they made for her. Nailed it. You fucking nailed that. You nailed that so hard. Here's the deal. Very kind of
Fans slammed the decision, seeing a star athlete referenced as an anonymous figure, and the outrage percolated. For supporters who already felt women's sports are often treated as an afterthought, the omission landed like a thud. The post came down not long after, but the discussion did not. Suddenly, the controversy cut both ways. Some had accused Clark of disrespecting the NFL team by not wearing the jersey. Now critics accuse the NFL team of disrespecting Clark by failing to name her at all. What had begun as a light, ceremonial exchange between two franchises spiraled into a case study in optics, sensitivity, and the friction that emerges when institutions misread a moment. The irony wrote itself. A team tried to honor a local star and ended up in the crosshairs. A player tried to remain true to herself and ended up in the crosshairs. Everyone was certain someone had been disrespected. Not everyone could agree on who. Beneath the headlines, this mini-saga revealed how different the sports landscape is today. 10 years ago, the sight of a women's player refusing to wear a football jersey might have passed unnoticed. But the rise of women's basketball, powered by stars like Clark, has changed the scale of attention. The women's game has been packed with storylines. Sold-out arenas, soaring TV numbers, cultural crossovers, intense rivalries, and signature moments that have pushed the conversation forward. With that visibility comes a new weight. Every gesture is magnified, every choice parsed, every symbol examined. A jersey is no longer just a jersey. It is a canvas other people will paint on. Clark has lived in that magnified space for years now. In college, she stepped into a national spotlight and, with poise rare for any age, carried the expectations of a fan base that grew far beyond campus borders. She celebrated, she competed, she talked her talk, and she made her shots from distances that felt like acts of rebellion. Along the way, she became a vessel for conversations about swagger and double standards, about who gets to celebrate how, about who receives grace and who does not. She never begged for those conversations, she simply played. But the culture came to her anyway, because that is what happens when excellence meets charisma. The public does not ask permission before turning athletes into symbols. When she arrived in the pros and became the face of a franchise, the city adopted her quickly, almost ravenously. She filled arenas on the road. She made home games into events. She helped transform her team's trajectory and reset expectations. With that kind of impact, it's easy for a city to feel possessive, to assume that any honor the city offers must be graciously accepted. And that may be where the wires crossed in this drama. There is a difference between rejecting a community and preserving a part of oneself. The former is a burn. The latter is a boundary. Clark drew a boundary in the smallest possible way. A smile. A thank you. A jersey held but not worn. The gesture was quiet. The reaction was not. What got louder was the larger theme bubbling under the surface: respect. Respect for a player's identity and the roots of her fandom. Respect for women's athletes and the way teams and leagues reference them.
Respect for audiences who can sense when something feels off. A single caption in a video post may not seem like a big deal, but in a climate where women have fought for visibility in sports media, the difference between a name and a number is not trivial. It says, "We see you," or it says, "We don't."
There is another layer to the conversation, the one about power and change within women's basketball itself. Clark, alongside veteran stars and fellow young leaders, has been part of a chorus demanding that the momentum around the women's game be met with investment and vision. Talk of better travel, improved salaries, and smarter marketing is no longer whispered in hallways. It is delivered into microphones. When a star speaks up, people listen. And when people listen, they sometimes bristle. Words like grateful surface from authority figures as a reminder to keep perspective. But gratitude and ambition are not opposites. You can love the path that brought you here and still insist that the road ahead be paved better for the next generation. The jersey moment became a mirror. To one set of eyes, it showed a player snubbing a kind gesture. To another, it showed a young woman refusing to amend her identity for a photo op. To yet another, it reflected how easily institutions can flatten women's accomplishments into labels that lack warmth. Mirrors don't just reflect, they expose angles. Each side of this story found an angle to defend. But if you stand far enough back, the picture is not ugly. It is complicated, sure, but also hopeful. The public care enough about a WNBA star to turn a tiny gesture into a big conversation. That's a measure of progress disguised as outrage. For the football team, the lesson is straightforward. Name the people you celebrate. Read the room. Understand that a surname carries history, community, sweat, and memory, especially when that surname has drawn unprecedented attention to your city's basketball arena. A number is clean and neutral. A name is connective tissue. And as for the jersey invitation, the lesson is just as simple. No one is required to wear a rival's colors to be a good guest. Gifts do not obligate identity. When the gift is declined with a smile, accept the smile.
For Caitlin Clark, the moment adds another thread to a growing tapestry of public myth. She is the shooter from the logo.
Played Madden on the lowest difficulties like 10-year-old Mick did, who knew nothing about football. You could throw 100-yard Hail Marys with Peyton Manning because his rating was so high on rookie difficulty.
And the Phoenix Mercury, that whole investigation is probably pending, allegedly, with the trade.
The star who fills buildings, the kid with the Chiefs' heart who will not trade it for convenience. The same stubbornness that keeps her range limitless keeps her compass steady off the court. The same magnetism that sells jerseys also attracts scrutiny. The same clarity that lets her read a defense lets her read herself. In the cascade of reactions, she did not need to explain. She is explained once and for all simply by being consistent. The most striking part of the story is how quickly people took sides, each declaring disrespect from the other camp. But respect is not a zero-sum commodity distributed like tickets at the gate. Respect multiplies when given generously. The city can respect her loyalty. She can respect the city's invitation. The football team can respect her name. Fans can respect that the players on either side are human beings who sometimes make choices that disappoint us and teach us at the same time. That is how culture grows up. In a year stacked with women's sports milestones, the jersey incident might have been a footnote. Instead, it surfaced the tension between ceremony and authenticity. Ceremony says, put on the jersey, smile, say the line. Authenticity says, I am grateful, but I cannot be what I am not, even for a minute, even for a picture. Ceremonies are designed to look seamless, which is why a wrinkle catches the eye. Yet the wrinkle keeps the moment from being forgettable. It provokes. It asks questions about where loyalty belongs and how far hospitality extends. It reveals the human underneath the uniform. There was also a simple sports truth humming through this entire episode. Fans treasure loyalty because it's the one thing the modern era seems built to erode. Players change teams, franchises change cities, rules change midstream, and the business marches on. Loyalty, when it appears, feels like a relic and a relief. That is part of why people responded to Clark's choice. Even those who disagreed with her liked that there was a clear stance, unpolished by PR strategy. She didn't make a speech. She didn't perform a protest. She just didn't put on the jersey. Everyone else supplied the noise. Later, as the schedules drummed forward and the seasons overlapped, the shape of the story softened. People returned to the reasons they were watching in the first place. Clark returned to the court, where her game remains the most eloquent thing about her. The football team returned to game plans and injury reports and standings. The city returned to the weekly rhythm of sports as civic heartbeat. The internet found a new debate. But the memory lingered, filed away with other small but sticky snapshots. The glance shared between a star and a crowd, the tilt of a smile that could be read as gentle defiance or gentle gratitude, depending on where you stood. If you strip away the ambient static, what remains is a portrait of a young athlete with a firm sense of self, and an institution that stumbled over the basics of acknowledgement. Both truths can coexist. She can belong to a city in one jersey and to a childhood in another. The team can intend celebration and still forget the importance of a name. Fans can crave unity and still forgive honesty. No one has to be the villain for the story to be instructive.
There is a temptation with viral sports moments to assign a tidy moral, to say one side was right and the other wrong. But the greater value in this one is the glimpse it offers of where women's sports stand today. Central enough to command the spotlight, scrutinized enough that tiny choices reverberate, powerful enough that a player's identity is no longer negotiable in the face of custom and convenience. That is progress measured not in banners but in expectations. The expectation that a woman athlete be addressed by her name. The expectation that her allegiances be taken seriously. The expectation that a city's embrace be big enough to include her boundaries. In the seasons ahead, there will be more ceremonies, more crossovers, more moments when leagues nod to each other across the American sports landscape. Lessons from this incident will travel with them. Clarify the gesture, personalize the message, allow the human to remain human. The applause will sound the same, the photos will look better, and when the next star holds a gifted jersey and decides whether to wear it, the entire building will understand what that choice means and, more importantly, what it does not. Caitlin Clark will keep doing what she does best. She will take the ball at the logo and let it fly. A shot that starts arguments in the air and ends them in the net. She will carry herself with the calm that comes from knowing who she is. She will sign autographs, pose for photos, inspire kids, and frustrate defenses. She will show up for her team and her city in the ways that truly count, the ways that are measured by wins and resilience and the electricity she creates when the game feels heavy and the moment asks for something unreasonable. And somewhere in her house, maybe on a shelf by the door, there will be a blue football jersey with her name and number, a little artifact from a day when the world asked her to try on a different self, and she said, politely, no.
The beauty of sports is that they give us space to argue meaning without consequence. No matter what you believed about that sideline moment, the next game still tipped off. The clock still started. People still roared. The shared, unspoken agreement is that we will come back next week and do it again, and maybe we will see ourselves in the players a little more clearly each time. That is why this story stuck. It was never just about a jersey. It was about identity, about how we welcome each other, about how we keep faith with our younger selves. It was about the ways small choices echo when the world is listening. It was about a star who refused to trade her colors for a snapshot, and a team that learned the difference between a number and a name. And it was about a fan base big enough, loud enough, and invested enough to care. In the end, shock fades, debate cools, and the narrative folds into the larger arc of a career that is only beginning. The episode becomes a line in the biography of a player whose story grows by the month. Years from now,
When the highlight reels stretch long and the accomplishments stack high, the jersey saga will look minor, almost quaint. But the imprint it left on how we think about respect, about authenticity, about the etiquette of honoring each other will still be there, subtle but durable. A reminder that fame does not erase the simplest truths, that a name matters, that a gift does not demand a costume, and that the most powerful statements are often the ones made with a smile and a gentle refusal.